Hey everyone. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about our place in the world and our size compared to the world. If everyone alive today received an equal share of the Earth's surface, what would your share look like? How would you be using it? As one of 7 billion people, your share of the Earth's surface would be a square, 268 meters on each side. I'll use mostly metric here. A meter is roughly a yard with 3 extra inches. I've shown your share here, divided into a 10 by 10 grid of smaller squares, which would be 26.8 meters on each side. It's obligatory to use school buses and football fields for such measurements, so I've included some of each on the same scale. You already know that most of your share is going to be covered in water, almost entirely ocean. Since we're dividing up the surface of a sphere, your share of the ocean goes all the way down, an average depth of 3.7 kilometers. Your atmosphere goes all the way up, too, by the way. It contains the equivalent of 10 vertical kilometers of air at standard surface temperature and pressure. 72 of your 100 squares are water. Say 71 ocean and 1 for salty seas. Your share of all the rivers and lakes in the world is far less than 1 square, but you do have a significant amount of fresh water in underground aquifers and other sources. Take a moment to compare your dry land to the football field on the right. The island shown has a perimeter of 589 meters. It would take me 7 minutes to walk all the way around it. That's your share of the world's dry land. Of the 28 land squares you own, the USGS estimates that a third are desert. In fact, adding up the 25 largest named deserts on Wikipedia alone gives 9 squares worth of desert. Most deserts are not sandy. The term just means somewhere with very little rainfall and hence very little life. Hence a wide variety of land types are included in this figure: hot deserts, cold deserts, and marginal lands like scrubland, arid grasslands, and badlands. 3 of your squares are devoted to crops. I should say that all of these figures are based on global averages. In the US, each person uses about 8 squares of crops, not just 3. Keep that in mind as we proceed. To sustain an American diet, you'd need to reallocate 5 additional squares for crops. Average global usage would require 6 squares of land for pasture. Again, an American diet requires 11 squares of pasture, not 6, so you'll need to find the space for those if you want to support that lifestyle. 6 squares of your island represent your share of the world's forests. About 2.5 squares are IFL, intact forest landscape. Not necessarily old-growth forest, but largely undisturbed, healthy swaths of wilderness. The rest are trees distributed through a developed landscape of farmland, urban areas, and road systems. The remaining 4 squares are undeveloped grasslands and savanna. Urban development, in case you're wondering, takes up less than 1/10 of a square. The average city dweller occupies a surprisingly small amount of room, 1/7 of a square for a New Yorker, 1/16 of a square for someone in Mumbai. By contrast, an automobile driver needs more than a whole square just for his share of roads and parking lots. Of course, crop and pasture requirements are unaffected by urban or rural residency. Had we done this exercise in 1970, your island and ocean would have been twice as large. In 1750, they would have been about 10 times as large. Even with the less advanced farming practices of that time, you'd have used less than 1 square for crops and less than a square for pasture. The remainder of your island would have been mostly intact forest and grassland, with roughly the same 1/3 being desert. Assuming the world's population continues to rise, then the size of your island will keep getting smaller. Imagine literally cutting up your plot of land to accommodate increasing numbers of children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Assuming more people continue to convert to a diet high in meat protein and processed foods, the percentage of land allocated to crops and pasture will continue to rise. Keep comparing the island to the football field. If you actually found yourself on an island of this size, think Robinson Crusoe or Tom Hanks, would it be possible for you, working alone over the course of a lifetime, to make a significant impact on the appearance of your island? Certainly. You could convert an entire square of your desert into farmland with just a month of hard work by irrigating and fertilizing a 5 by 5 meter plot every day. Similarly, you could drastically increase or decrease the size of your forest, which after all only contains about 60 trees. 60 trees may take a long time to grow, but not to plant. This number is based on the study mentioned above, but coincides almost exactly with a NASA survey that calculated the world's population of trees. I want to counter the argument, which is really just an emotional appeal, that man as a species is far too small and insignificant to ever affect the condition of the world's biosphere, climate, or environment. The world is an amazingly large place, but your share of the world amounts to an island you could walk around in 7 minutes, attached to a slightly larger expanse of ocean. It wouldn't take a strip mine or a paper factory to convert or destroy such a tiny plot of land. It would take patience and a shovel, or a book of matches. One thing this thought experiment shows is that it is theoretically possible for us to vastly improve the condition of the Earth over the course of a lifetime, but it is also almost certain that we will continue to degrade it as we have done at an ever-increasing rate for thousands of years. Most efforts at conservation are just that, measures that slightly slow down our rate of consumption, try to make our remaining resources last a little bit longer. My personal reaction to all of this is that we're on the cusp of a dramatic change. The size and composition of our individual shares of the Earth, our personal islands, have been gradually shifting with increased population and land use conversion. A critical point is approaching, in land use as in dozens of other areas, where constantly increasing demand is about to surpass rock-solid supply. When that change happens, it will be both dramatic and instantaneous. We shouldn't reject such conclusions just because they're unprecedented. The whole of human history is largely a succession of unprecedented events. I'm not advocating any particular behaviors to stave off or even help weather this crisis. The forces that are leading us towards it are simply too powerful to subvert or resist. All we can do is keep our eyes open and, as always, try to enjoy the ride.